It's finally draft day, the day that could change everything for the future of the New Orleans Saints. Here's how they could get it done. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I'm your host, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network. And on today's episode, it's draft day. So let's get one final mock draft in. Had to get you an extra episode today for the mock draft. So we're going to be taking a look at how day 3 in this year's draft has make or break potential with the decisions that the New Orleans Saints make personnel-wise in terms of selection or otherwise. We're going to break all that down. We're also going to look at why the New Orleans Saints severely need to be considering trading back in the second round. We're going to buck some trends today, and we're going to kick everything off with the New Orleans Saints hitting a home run by standing pat at pick 14. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. And of course, for being an everydayer here on the show, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. You know I've got a competitive side, and my competitive side absolutely loves Monopoly Go. It's a mobile twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. So, New Orleans Saints, I would love to see them stand pat at 14 and make the selection that makes the most sense on the offensive line at this point. That's what I was able, or at that point, that's what I was able to do for them. And I'm kind of undergoing this as a little bit of a predictive mock, right? To get one more predictive mock in. And I think that if all goes well, the Saints selection at 14 should be pretty obvious. Look, there's a good chance that Penn State offensive tackle Olu Fashanu is going to be off the board. If he's there at 14, you have to consider it. Even though he's a career left tackle, you take the best player on the board. But because the Saints have a big need on their offensive line, and because of where they select at 14, there's a good chance that the best player available meets their biggest need. And that's exactly what happened here in this mock draft. And I could easily see this being the selection for the New Orleans Saints. Oregon State offensive tackle Taliese Fuaga. Talise comes in at 6'5", 324 pounds. With a relative athletic score, which, just as a quick reminder, is effectively a comparison and a score that's scaled based upon a player's athletic testing and how it compares relative to historic players, players historically playing at the same position. So 9.54 out of 10 here shows you he's got big time athleticism. He's a mauler, man. He plays with a really, really kind of aggressive mentality, not somebody that overplays to the whistle or anything like that, but he comes in strong and ready to go. At 6'5", 324, he's got great size. He has the ability to be able to move left and right, move laterally, get the speed going. 5'1", 340-yard dash comes in at a pretty high percentile there when it comes to 40s. He's got good explosion as well with a 32-inch vertical at 6'5", 324. That's pretty outstanding there. 9'3" 3-inch broad jump as well. So he has done a lot of things that make you very okay with him being the selection at 14, right? He fits in athletically. He fits in terms of the scheme, right? You have a lot of zone run offenses over in the Pac-12, and certainly Oregon State is one of them. Oregon State's a team that the New Orleans Saints have drafted from before. He comes in having allowed no sacks over the course of the last 3 years, despite playing 699 snaps at right tackle last year in 2023, according to Pro Football Focus, and 810 in 2022 at Oregon State, according to Pro Football Focus. So no sacks allowed in that time, has only allowed 5 hits in his career over those 2 seasons and 18 total hurries. This guy's a really good protector. He's a really good pass protector, and he's very aggressive in the run game and can get moving laterally. He can climb up to the second level. He's strong. He's got a good base. He can anchor. He just checks a lot of boxes. Former New Orleans Saints general manager Randy Mueller has him as the number 2 offensive tackle on his board. There's a lot of faith in a guy like Taliese Fuaga, and that faith carries through to this mock draft and should carry through to the New Orleans Saints as well, because he'd be a heck of a pick for them. Look, the Saints want Trevor Penning to pan out over on the left side, but you can draft him competition if you want to. You could bring in an Olu Fashanu, But if he's not on the board, which is what happened in this version of my mock draft, you go to the next best guy, and the next best guy is clearly, in my opinion, Taliese Fuaga. You could go to J.C. Latham at Alabama as well. You could go to Troy Fautanu, another guy that I really, really like, but I think that the Saints feel differently about than I do. Although Troy Fautanu would be my selection almost in a heartbeat, right? If Fashion is not there, but Taliese Fuaga just is fantastic. Comes in with 33 and an 1/8-inch arm, so a little bit shorter than what you like over at the tackle position. You tend to want 34 or above. But look, Ryan Ramczyk came in at less than 34 in his year, and he held up great while he was healthy. And I think that's one of the reasons why you have to really consider Fuaga here, is because he comes in as a career right tackle who can plug in at right tackle for you where you absolutely need that help. He also comes in as a team captain, first team All-American, first team All Pac-12, all of it. So he's got the leadership, he's got the voice, he's got the production, he's got the recognition. He's not coming in as a project. He's coming in ready to go as a plug-and-play starter on the New Orleans Saints offensive line. And I think that would be absolutely huge for them. There are some that look at him as a guy that can move inside potentially. I think that becomes like your backup opportunity there, but as your backup opportunity, meaning like if things don't work out at right tackle. But I don't think there's going to be anything here where you look at Fuaga and go, that's not going to work at right tackle. He does everything incredibly well, and I really, really like him. Very smart player, durable player as well. He was flagged. He had, according to Dane Brugler, 6 false starts in 2023. So maybe that's something to watch out for there. And then just making sure that, he's understanding the snap count, especially coming into a new offense and all that. So there might be a little bit of a bump in the road there. But look, 25 straight games starting over the course of the last 2 years at right tackle. Experience, production, athleticism, explosiveness. And if the one thing you got to reel back is that he's a little bit too antsy to get started, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that being his big problem, that he's a little bit too quick to the whistle. So maybe just finding a way to reel that in just so that it doesn't rear its ugly head at like the wrong times and in the worst possible situations and all that stuff. That would be a situation that you're okay with, right? And so as long as you can blockade yourself or safeguard yourself or him from that, then that's totally fine. So at pick 14, the selection is Oregon State offensive tackle Taliese Fuaga at 6'5", 324, athletic, strong, all of it. Here's your new starting right tackle for the New Orleans Saints. Now, obviously, the New Orleans Saints have more needs than just right tackle on the offensive line, and that's one of the reasons why I think they should consider trading back in the second round and breaking the mold for the first time since 2007. Let me give you an idea of what that would look like and how the Saints can bolster 2 big-time positions of need with one move. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by my favorite mobile game ever, Monopoly Go. I grew up playing Monopoly, so this is a really cool way to kind of get back into that, play with family, play with friends, all that kind of stuff. But look, I got a little bit of a competitive side, and my competitive side is always a big fan of Monopoly Go because I can charge my friends that I'm playing against for landing on my iconic properties, just like the classic Monopoly. You also get the opportunity to heist vaults of your friends and take all those riches for yourself. I love that part. And of course, leaderboards and all that too, to make sure that you know who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. So make sure you go and check it out. You can find it on the App Store and Google Play for free. And it is the best way to continue if you're like me and love the game of Monopoly. It's this mobile hit twist that allows you to be able to play on dynamic Monopoly boards, including a New Orleans board that you can work your way up to as well. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store and Google Play. This episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel as well, our official sports betting partners here on the Locked On Podcast Network and America's #1 sportsbook. It's playoff time right now in the NBA and in the NHL. Baseball is in full swing as well. And of course, FanDuel is the best place to go. It's where you can bet on every single game. And if you like the NFL draft as much as I do, there's even more that you can get in on, including who you think is going to be the picks 1 through 10. You can even try to bet the exact selections of 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's so much there. And of course, New Orleans Saints heavily favored to take offensive line with their first selection in this year's NFL drafts. You can check out all of that and much more, and it gets even better right now. If you're a new customer, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to NFL draft picks to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon today and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, family, the value might be perfect in the second round. The New Orleans Saints are on the clock at 45 to do what it is that they haven't done since 2007 and trade back. Yeah, we're entertaining it a little bit here on draft day. We're going to check out what a trade back could look like for the New Orleans Saints in the second round, and you're going to see why I think it would be such a good idea. So as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, I want to thank you very much for making us your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget to go and check out Locked On Sports today as well. And please know that all throughout the NFL draft, we're going to have you covered here at Locked On Saints with exclusive clips, with conversations with players, like all these other things, or snippets from our conversations with players. I'm going to be at the Saints facility, so they're going to hook us up with our Zoom calls and all this other stuff. So lots of good stuff that we're going to be able to get to you over the course of the evening, and I cannot wait. I absolutely cannot wait. So let's take a look here at what I did for the New Orleans Saints at pick 45. Instead of selecting at 45, because there were several wide receivers here that I could take, I was looking at, okay, can I move back within 8 selections? That was my cutoff. Like, I didn't want to move back any further than 53, and I wanted to do something that was going to be realistic here. So I wanted to stay as tight to 45 as possible, which meant that I would probably have to take a little bit, you're going to get a second pick out of this. You're going to get an additional selection out of this. It means that I'd probably have to take one that's not in the 80s, maybe one in the 90s, but I was okay with that. Did not have an issue doing that. So for me, when I saw Keon Coleman still on the board, Xavier Legette still on the board, Malachi Corley still on the board, Roman Wilson still on the board, Troy Franklin still on the board, Jalen Polk still on the board, you get the idea. There are a lot of wide receivers here, which is where I really like to go for the Saints in this area. However, the other thing that I wanted to look at was interior offensive line, and there were a lot of interior offensive linemen that were ready as well, including a guy that I was kind of targeting in Boston College's Christian Mahogany, a player that has visited the New Orleans Saints, has everything he needs to be a long-term starter in the NFL. However, medicals, right? So I was willing to trade back, maybe land him in the third round and see how things go, but I didn't have to go that route. Let me explain what I did here. So I made this trade with the Los Angeles Rams. I sent 45 to the Rams so that they could move up, and I took 52 and 99. So I stayed within 8 selections like I wanted to. And again, because I took a selection that was so close to my 45, I had to take something a little bit later than I would have necessarily liked, but it still kept me in the range for Christian Mahogany. So let's take a look at what I did. At 52, because all those wide receivers were still on the board, I got a little lucky here. I was able to go with Xavier Legette, wide receiver out of South Carolina. And now I'm hearing all the moans and groans of like, he's not going to be on the board at 52. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. 6'1", 220, 9.90 RAS. I think he's the perfect wide receiver in this year's draft class for what it is that the New Orleans Saints need. Because not only do you want somebody like a Keon Coleman who can be your ex-receiver on the outside, but you want somebody that's going to be able to pick up yards after catch for you. The Saints kind of have that guy in Rashid Shaheed, but why not have a second threat there at the position? And I think Xavier Legette brings that to you, especially at that high, at that size, 220. That's a big dude running with the football in his hands. So when I look at the opportunity to be able to get a guy like Xavier Legette, and if you think Xavier Legette's not going to be there, then replace him with Jalen Polk, replace him with Troy Franklin, replace him with Roman Wilson, replace him with Ricky Pearsall, replace him with Ladd McConkey, replace him with Malachi Corley. You get the idea, right? Like, you can find a wide receiver if you trade back from 45 and land a spot where you're going to be able to get all of this done. So one way or another, whatever your favorite receiver is out of that group, throw him in there. Mine is Xavier Legette. And look, Xavier Legette hasn't been a guy that folks have been as high on as I believe they should be. Like Damian Parson, my good friend over at Locked On NFL Draft, and I were talking about this here recently. Like, we don't get it. We do not understand what it is about Xavier Legette that for whatever reason, media just hasn't caught on. I think teams have, but media just hasn't caught on in the way that we think that they should. So this trade back allowed me to be able to do that. If I trade back to 52 and take Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky, equally happy with the selection. What really got me stoked, though, was what I was able to do at 99. So remember, I was targeting Christian Mahogany, who's an interior offensive lineman. Saints just had James Hurst retire. I think they probably expected that more than maybe we did, especially looking at the fact that James Hurst about a month ago or a little bit more than a month ago, reduced his salary from $3 million to 1.21, which is the vet minimum, and got rid of some of those bonuses. So I think the Saints have a plan here. Wouldn't be surprised if guys like Dalton Risner or Andrus Peat are ready to be contacted at the end of the NFL draft or after the NFL draft for sort of that post-draft free agency. However, you might be able to get somebody here, and that's what I was able to do with Kansas State offensive guard Cooper Beebe. Cooper Beebe is one of my favorite players on the interior in this draft, behind obvious guys like Jackson Powers Johnson and all that. Like that's clear that would be one of my favorites. But at 6'3", 322 pounds, coming in with a really nice athletic score as well of 9.28. You get the athleticism from him, 5.03 40-yard dash. So you're starting to rebuild that fastest offensive line in the NFL at this point. He's somebody that has experience in zone run. Kansas State, the crazy stuff that they do with their offense. He is not a guy that's going to get tripped up. He's not a guy that's going to get lost in a new system or anything like that, because some of the stuff that they do at Kansas State is absolutely wild in some cases. So I think he'd be a great fit for the New Orleans Saints and what it is that they're looking for. Team captain for the last 2 seasons as well. First team All-American, consensus All-American as well. So he's picking up all that. Scholar Athlete of the Year. The New Orleans Saints love stuff like that too. You get leadership, you get high IQ, you get a lot of experience, 51 games played, 48 of which started. You also get really, really good durability. Played 13 of 13 games in 2021, 14 of 14 in 2022, 13 of 13 in 2023. Outstanding, right? Then you look at the fact that he's played left guard. He's had starts at left guard and each tackle spot. Go ahead and grab him. Now, he's probably not going to ever contribute to you when it comes to the tackle spots. 31.5-inch arms might give you a little bit of concern over on the outside there. It certainly should. But on the interior, you can deal with that. Not a problem. And coming in as a guy that has left guard experience and that can come in and do that. He had 26 games started at left guard, including 11 of them last year, which was a part of that consensus All-American, first team this, first team that, school athlete or scholar athlete of the year. That's a position that he was playing that entire time. And so, and he started all 14 of his games in 2022 at left guard as well. So he gives you somebody that's got the athleticism. He gives you somebody that's got the experience in terms of like wild, wacky offenses that are trying to do different things, all of that. And he gives you sort of that leadership that you want over on the offensive line as well. I think that the team captain thing is important on the offensive line. I really do. I think that that's something that ends up helping when you need leadership and you need people to be, vocal and communicate and all that other stuff. Team captain's a really, really good way to find all of that. So absolutely love being able to trade back out of 45 and land Xavier Legette at 52 and Cooper Beebe at 99. I feel really good about where this is. Like if my draft stopped here, I've got 3 guys that are starters for me next year already. And I love that. And this is why getting into the top 100 or getting an extra selection in the top 100 is so important, because there's a big time drop off after the top 100 when it comes to prospects in this year's draft until a certain point. The good news is that that certain point comes when the New Orleans Saints get back on the board. But do we think they're really going to wait around until 150? I'm still not even sure of that, even though I got the extra selection at 99. So I'm definitely trading up to handle the Saints' 4th biggest need in my book and taking a look over on the defensive side. So let's get to that. We're going to make this make or break potential all make over on day 3. No misses. We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn. LinkedIn, the NFL draft. It's all about finding the talent that you're looking for to make your business, your team even better. And if you're a small business, you know that the lifeblood of your business is in the team that you assemble. And that's why LinkedIn is here to help make that job easier. Hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. This isn't your average job posting site. LinkedIn gets it done for you, and they help you make it even easier. Like they end up going through, they even just added a new feature here recently that helps you write job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses also use LinkedIn for hiring. So if you're not using LinkedIn for hiring, you might be behind the 8 ball a little bit, but don't worry about it. You'll get caught up really, really quick. 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours of posting your job. So don't wait any longer. Go to post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Day 3 can be make or break for the New Orleans Saints. They continue to fill out their roster, but we're all makes right here. This we did not miss here in day 3, and we still made a move up to make sure that we got a prospect that we really like as well. One that I haven't talked about in a while, but that made my very, very first mock draft and is now making my last mock draft of 2024. We got all that coming up for you today. Don't forget, we are your team every day, so I'll be right back with you. After the New Orleans Saints make a selection, you'll get a clip here and then get some insight from our Locked On college football expert, Spencer McLaughlin. We're all going to be here covering that, and you'll get a late episode after the first round. Just want to make sure nothing surprising happens in the first round to make sure that you have everything that you need from that selection. We'll probably go live as well if people are still up, so we'll go for it as well. So lots of good stuff coming up for you here on Locked On Saints, your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. All right, so let's take a look here. The next thing that I did was that I made another trade up. This time, the trade up was made to address a different position, or not another trade up. I made a trade up. The last one was a trade back. So I wanted to come up and address a big time position over in the defensive side, and in this case, it was safety. I think safety is one of those spots where there can still get Saints can still get some work done here. Jordan Howden's a good fit behind Tyrann Mathieu as a deep post safety. Jonathan Abrams should kind of get, first bite, first chance at the spot next to Tyrann Mathieu, but you want to bring in some long-term competition there, or some competition and long-term ability there too. You want to get younger at that safety spot, especially because one of your best players is there, who is an older player in Tyrann Mathieu. So I wanted to jump up here. So I sent the Denver Broncos, our old pal Sean Payton, 168 and 175. In order to move up to 121. This also panned out just fine on the trade charts and all those other things. And at 121, I went with, as I mentioned, the very first safety that I ever drafted in our mock drafts here. Cole Bishop, the safety out of Utah. 6'2", 206 pounds, 988 relative athletic score. This dude is athletic as all get out. Let me give you some of his testing numbers. 4.45 speed, so he's got range. 39-inch vertical leap, so he can go up there and make plays on the ball. 10-foot 4-inch broad jump, so he has that first step. He has that explosiveness. Really good 10-yard split, really good 20-yard split as well, which is just taking the 40-yard split or the 40-yard dash and looking at the first 10 yards and the first 20 yards, basically. And the reason why that becomes important is because you're looking at a shorter area of burst, right? You're not able to really, quote-unquote, get up to speed in those situations. So how quickly can you get up to speed? So what we see from Cole Bishop is that he can quickly get up to speed. That's really helpful when you're a guy like Cole Bishop, who is like tailor-made to play down in the box. And I think he can be a starting strong safety right away and end up being a long-term strong safety as well. He also comes in with good coverage skills, good numbers in terms of all that as well. So I think that you get sort of that versatile type of player that you were looking for or that you were looking forward to having with a Marcus May. You get a younger, more athletic version of him here in Cole Bishop. One of the things that I'm looking at for him is his ability to tackle. 13% missed tackle rate, pretty standard for a safety at that spot. 67.8 passer rating allowed when targeted, pretty good when it comes to forcing those incompletions and getting in there. But for me, it's all about the tackles. It's all about coming down to be able to make plays. It's all about being able to play in the box in this situation. And he has played a lot in the box and played a lot in the slot as well. So there's real opportunity for you to maybe be able to see a little bit of versatility from him. And the New Orleans Saints absolutely love that. So Cole Bishop was my selection at 121 after the trade up. Then I stood pat at 150. One of my favorite prospects to usually draft at 150 is Wake Forest safety Malik Mustafa. He wasn't there. And also I didn't have to take him because I already have Cole Bishop. So instead I went to the running back side of all this and I went with Will Shipley, the running back out of Clemson. Now, we started talking about Will Shipley a couple of weeks ago. 5'10", 206, 954 RAS. He comes in, he brings in good speed, which I think you absolutely love at the position, 4.45 speed. Good explosion as well with a 38.5-inch vertical. Fine size at 5'11", 206. Wouldn't mind seeing him put a little bit more weight on. In particular, he doesn't have to put on a ton, but if he can get into that like 210, 211 range or above, I think that could work out and that could help him. But the other thing I just like about him is that he's a pure pass catcher out of the backfield as well. Like he is a natural pass catcher in those situations. So I like being able to add that for him. He's somebody that has experience with zone run and that would be able to, contribute in those ways. And so I think that that's another reason why he ends up fitting. His stats from last year, ran just 167 attempts, which is good. You want to see like less wear and tear on these players. But he ended up playing 12 games last year, 14 games before that, 10 games the year before that. He had a 1,000 rushing yard season back in 2022, followed it up with an 840 yard rushing season last year. But the thing that I really like about him is 38 catches last year, 42 catches the year before that, 24 catches the year before that. So he's one of the more experienced pass catchers out of the backfield in this class, and a very high running grade when it comes to the zone run as well. So you get a lot of value in terms of what you're going to be asking him to do here in New Orleans, already seen on tape when it comes to Will Shipley. All right, let's get to our last few picks here. I told you on no misses. At pick 170, Javon Foster. Let's keep building up that offensive line. We already brought Taliese Fuaga in. We already brought in Cooper Beebe. Now let's add another tackle that could potentially get in the mix as your sixth offensive lineman, or potentially develop into a starter for you over the course of the future. He's got left tackle experience. He's got, he can move around. He's 6'5", 313 pounds. He doesn't have the relative athletic score that you necessarily like, 6.32, but at this point in the draft, that's okay. We can deal with that. But ran incredible zone offense, zone run offense in Missouri last year that really helped their offense come to life. And he talked about how it all comes together, how the zone run works while he was at the combine. You could tell he's ridiculously smart. You could tell he's a leader. He's got all those things. And so I like a guy with some left tackle experience here late. All right, let's go to a pick that I've never made before, but this one goes out to my good friend Mike Triplett. At pick 190, how about Tory Taylor, the punter out of Iowa? 6'3", 229. His net punt was 44.2 yards. Lou Hedley's last year was just over 43 yards. But here's the other piece of it too. Lou Hedley might have had a 43 or so net punt average, but his total gross average was around 39 yards. So not the longest punts, but definitely got the net there because they weren't returned. Now, Tory Taylor got a better net while also punting for nearly 10 yards more, 48.2 on average in 2023. So you're going to get a punter competition this offseason. The Saints always bring in two. You want more legs anyway. So why not go and get a guy that can get it done? Tory Taylor. That one's for you, Mike. All right, let's take a look at 199. We'll go tight end here. Tip Ryman, 6'4", 271, 9.92 RAS, highest RAS in this class in terms of my selections here. Athletic, big blocker of a tight end that really has a lot of untapped potential when it comes to the ability of being a pass catcher. And then finally at 239 in the 7th round, let's go back to Auburn defensive tackle, Marcus Harris. A little bit of a tweener coming in at just 280 some odd pounds, 6'2", but 11 career sacks, 31 career tackles for a loss, and a 10.2% run stop rate. It definitely helps you out quite a bit to have a big guy like that in the middle. So all the way from Taliese Fuaga to Xavier Legette and Cooper Beebe on the trade back, the trade up for Cole Bishop, Will Shipley, the running back, followed by Javon Foster, Tory Taylor, the punter out of Iowa, Tip Ryman, the tight end out of Illinois, and then Marcus Harris wraps us up at defensive tackle out of Auburn. I love this draft. If New Orleans Saints came away with anything that looked close to this, I'm 100% down for it. I know the trade back is a little crazy because we know the New Orleans Saints don't typically trade back, but man, the value is absolutely there in the 2nd round, and getting that extra 3rd round pick should mean the world to the New Orleans Saints, especially with everything that they're dealing with here. So we'll be back with you all throughout the draft, and of course after. We appreciate you very much for making us your first listen of the day every day. Another embarrassing loss for the New Orleans Pelicans. You want to hear all about it in a mean cast? Go and check out Locked On Pelicans with Jake Madison as your second listen today. Appreciate you as always, making Locked On Saints Party Day part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.